My husband is the crown prince. He pretends to be an amnesiac butcher and lives with me in a small village as a poor couple. I overheard his conversation with the secret guard. Miss Yun saved the prince's life and is deeply in love with you. Once you come into power, should we make her your concubine? Li Yuanzhao replied coldly. Such a coarse village woman? I could never bring her back to the Eastern Palace. Our relationship was nothing more than a fleeting affair. Giving her 1,000 pieces of gold is already a great favor. I listened through the door, nearly laughing out loud. He doesn't know that I've been reborn. This money, I'll finally get my hands on it. Lately, that secret guard has been coming around frequently. Every time, Li Yuanzhao deliberately torments me, as if he has endless energy to use on me. Once I'm exhausted and asleep, he tiptoes out of the room, dressed in his nightclothes. Today was no different. Could it be that the day of his return to the palace is drawing near? I kept a close ear out and, when Li Yuanzhao stood up, quietly crept closer to the door. Outside, he was talking to the secret guard with his back to me. I held my breath and listened. Your Highness, the day is drawing near. What are your plans for Miss Yun? Upon hearing this, I suddenly felt tense. Li Yuanzhao remained silent. The secret guard continued. After all, it was Miss Yun who saved you. She is deeply in love with you. If you have feelings for her, you could always take her as a concubine. Li Yuanzhao finally spoke, his tone extremely cold. Zhu Chaoyun is a barbaric and fierce woman who cannot even read. Such a coarse woman. How could I possibly bring her back to the palace? Our relationship was nothing more than a fleeting affair. I have already bestowed upon her 1,000 taels of gold, which is a great favor. Li Yuanzhao's back prevented me from seeing his expression. I could only see the moonlight as the secret guard shook his head, as if pitying me. At that moment, the rest of their words vanished into thin air. Only the words 1,000 taels of gold rang in my ears. I suppressed the corners of my mouth from curling up crazily, stifled a laugh, and lay back down on the bed. Li Yuanzhao still didn't know that I had been reborn. I knew from the beginning that he was a scumbag. Before my rebirth, it wasn't me who found him, but Wang Jinhua from the same village. One day, while out gathering herbs, Wang Jinhua found a handsome young man at the village entrance, causing a stir throughout the village. Wang Jinhua was ugly, yet she placed the utmost importance on appearance when choosing a husband, which is why she had remained unmarried for so long. She fell head over heels for Li Yuanzhao and insisted on marrying him. On the night before their wedding, I urged Wang Jinhua to think carefully. A man should have real abilities, not just a good-looking face. Little did I know, I was proven wrong. On the day Li Yuanzhao returned to the palace, he wore a jade crown, a dragon robe, and was greeted by 10,000 soldiers kneeling in submission. The village path was so crowded you couldn't move. The villagers had never seen such a spectacle and were all stunned. Only then did I realize that the man Wang Jinhua had picked up was none other than the high and mighty crown prince. Li Yuanzhao's amnesia had always been an act. It was merely an excuse to hide his true identity. He deliberately hid in our remote village to bide his time and plot in secret. Now, he has finally emerged as the ultimate winner in the struggle for the throne. When Li Yuanzhao passed by Wang Jinhua, he was utterly heartless, his robe brushing past her without even a glance. Wang Jinhua, however, became obsessed with the idea of becoming the crown prince's consort. She spent her days clutching the treasures Li Yuanzhao had bestowed upon her, weeping and saying she didn't want the money, that she wanted to be his crown prince's consort. And she grew increasingly mad. I couldn't make sense of it. What was there to cry about? If it were me, I would have taken everything from that future emperor, slept with him until I got my money's worth. Once he returned to the palace, I would have lived a life of luxury, with mountains of gold and silver at my disposal. It would have been a win-win situation. Little did I know that a year later, shortly after Li Yuanzhao ascended the throne, a plague broke out in the village. People fell ill and died, and I was no exception. As I took my last breath, the cold face of Li Yuanzhao flashed before my eyes. I truly envy her. That was 1,000 taels of gold. If I had Wang Jinhua's good fortune, I could at least change my current fate. I thought my life had ended so abruptly. When I opened my eyes again, I had been reborn. This time, I didn't hesitate. I rushed straight to the village entrance. My sole purpose was to beat Wang Jinhua to Li Yuanzhao. I dressed up beautifully every day and waited for nearly half a month, longing for his return. Finally, I saw Li Yuanzhao, covered in injuries. Before he could faint, I smiled and rushed forward, steadying him. "Who are you? Where am I?" The weakened Li Yuanzhao remained vigilant. He pressed a sword against my throat, forbidding me to come any closer. But I didn't care. I squeezed out a voice, feigning distress. "My lord, I've come to save you." I didn't give Li Yuanzhao a chance to struggle, lifting half his body off the ground and dragging him back home. On the way back, I ignored his painful groans. My heart filled with joy. This unimaginable fortune has finally been mine. When Li Yuanzhao woke up again, his fate had been completely rewritten. This time, he was lying in my home. Before Li Yuanzhao lay, whip wounds medicine, fall injuries medicine, knife wounds medicine, bruise and contusion medicine. These were all prepared by me for Li Yuanzhao. I had already purchased every kind of rare medicine available in the market, fearing I might not be able to cure Li Yuanzhao. I waved my hand generously. "My lord, what exactly happened to you? Let me treat you." Li Yuanzhao looked peculiar and hesitantly reached for the wound medicine. This time, just like before, he claimed to have lost his memory. It seemed as though everything was heading back to its original fate. I did not expose Li Yuanzhao but instead went along with his plan and kept him at home. After some time, we got married. After we were married, I treated Li Yuanzhao with even greater care. Not only because he was my source of income, but also because he was the crown prince of the Eastern Palace and the future emperor. If I failed to take care of him properly now, and he harbored a grudge, then not only would I lose my money, but my life would be in danger. Every day, Li Yuanzhao went to the town to slaughter pigs and sell meat. I would carry a small food basket and walk a very long distance through the mountains to bring him water and food. No matter what time he returned home, I would wait silently at the village entrance with a lantern in hand. Everyone said that the butcher with the fair face in Lotus Village had a good wife, assuming I loved him deeply. Even Li Yuanzhao himself believed this. However, thanks to Li Yuanzhao, the butcher shop's business was thriving. He had handsome features, and many young women came from afar to admire him. They would order half a pound of meat just to catch a glimpse of Li Yuanzhao's graceful figure, and their blushing cheeks would turn red with regret the moment they saw me. But they didn't know that these small amounts of money weren't worth a glance to me. I counted the days on my fingers, growing more excited with each passing day. The day had finally arrived. But days went by. I waited and waited, but there was no news of Li Yuanzhao returning to the palace. "What are you thinking about?" Li Yuanzhao put down his chopsticks and stared at me intently. I cleared my throat, feeling a bit uneasy. "I was thinking about you." I met his gaze without hesitation, pouting my lips. Li Yuanzhao raised his eyebrows slightly. "I'm right in front of you. Why are you thinking about me? More and more girls come to the shop to buy meat. What if one day you don't like me anymore? Find me too wild and uneducated, and abandon me? What would I do then?" I feigned innocence. "Eat your meal properly. Stop making up nonsense all day long." He scolded me lightly. I sneered inwardly. This isn't nonsense. Isn't this exactly what His Royal Highness the Crown Prince said just a few days ago? You're the one making things up. We've been married for so long. And you've only called me wife a few times, I can count them on one hand. If I call you wife, will you eat obediently? Li Yuanzhao looked at me with a hint of seriousness. He stood up, added some food to my plate, and with his handsome brows lowered, called out naturally, "Wife." He clearly despises me so much. Yet he still goes through the motions with me every day. It really is a lot for him. I sweetly replied, Fortunately, these days of mutual pretense are finally coming to an end. After dinner, Li Yuanzhao sat on the edge of the bed and suddenly reached out his hand. He opened his palm, revealing a plain hairpin. There seemed to be faint patterns on it. I took it curiously, and Li Yuanzhao said, "It's for you." Seeing my confused expression, he turned his face away, his expression hidden. A new jewelry shop opened on the street today. I saw many girls buying this, so I thought you might like it. I despised him inwardly, but on the surface, I pretended to like it and said in surprise, "How did you know I like this style?" I suddenly wrapped my arms around his neck, smiled sweetly, and leaned in to give him a kiss. "Zhao Lang, you're so kind to me." Li Yuanzhao's eyes flickered. He grabbed my wrist, leaned in, and covered my lips with his own. As he brushed aside the bed curtain, I drifted into a daze, thinking, men are so easy to deceive. The next morning, there was a commotion outside the door. Someone shouted, "Wake up! Something's happened. The village entrance is full of soldiers." I jumped out of bed, clutching the blanket, but Li Yuanzhao was already gone. All traces of sleep vanished. As I stepped into the courtyard, I saw Li Yuanzhao standing there in his stone-blue robe, hands behind his back. At the entrance to my small courtyard, villagers were kneeling on the ground. Several men in official robes strode forward and knelt before Li Yuanzhao with a thud. "Your Royal Highness, we arrived late." "Finally! Why did you take so long?" I was so excited my eyes turned red. But I pretended to be scared and said, "Zhao Lang, who are they?" The purple-robed man kneeling on the ground roared at me. "Who are you? How dare you not kneel before the Crown Prince?" "Crown Prince." I collapsed to my knees. My lips trembled, and tears fell in large drops. Li Yuanzhao stood there, staring at me. He stood tall, but remained silent. After a moment, the words I had longed to hear finally escaped my throat. "Zhu sure deserves credit for saving the prince. She is awarded 1,000 taels of gold." With that, Li Yuanzhao passed by me, taking advantage of his brief pause. I wiped away my tears and snot, and cried out in despair, "Thank you, Prince Li, for your kindness." I stood up and placed the heavy tray of gold by my side. Then I took out the plain hairpin he had given me yesterday from my sleeve and ran toward the small stream by the courtyard gate. "Zhu Chaoyun!" Li Yuanzhao shouted my name behind me, sounding slightly out of control. He actually chased after me. I was startled. At the same time, I raised my hand high and threw the hairpin into the water. The hairpin only caused a tiny ripple on the surface before sinking instantly. "Your Highness," I smiled softly. "From now on, you and I have nothing to do with each other." Li Yuanzhao's footsteps were frozen in place by my words. The surroundings fell into an eerie silence. Perhaps sensing Li Yuanzhao's anger, everyone knelt on the ground, carefully lowering their heads, dared not look around. But if they dared to look up, they would see the prince's disheveled and humiliated appearance. Li Yuanzhao's eyes were bloodshot, staring intently at where the hairpin had disappeared, desperately trying to hide the trembling of his hands beneath his sleeves. As I wiped away my tears, I thought to myself, the Crown Prince truly is a dragon among men. He even manages to deceive himself in his acting. Unfortunately, he doesn't know that I witnessed Wang Jinhua's heartbreaking abandonment with my own eyes. If there was even the slightest chance that he would discard me once he was done with me, I would never allow myself to take that risk. Moreover, I heard him speak of me with my own ears. Rather than trust a man's fleeting affection, I'd rather trust the weight of gold. Besides, I've always found that hairpin ugly and wanted to throw it away. But I've forced myself to keep it until today. After a moment, a cold expression appeared on his face. Whether it was self-mockery or something else, he gave a faint smile. So be it. This time, Li Yuanzhao did not look back, watching the large group of people grow farther and farther away from the village. I rushed over to the pile of gold ingots, picked one up, brought it to my mouth, and bit down hard. It hurt, but it tasted so good. Hee hee. The villagers around me looked at me in horror as I laughed maniacally. They thought I had been abandoned and was so overcome with grief that I had lost my mind. For a moment, everyone looked at me with sympathy. Actually, this time around, after obtaining this fortune, I had one more thing I wanted to do, though I wasn't sure if it was feasible. After much deliberation, I decided to give it a try. I quickly wiped away my tears, stood in the center of the villagers, and had them gather around. Fellow villagers, Chao Yun has something to say. Zhao Lang, as the crown prince, once he returns to the palace, he will inevitably recall the hardships he endured in Lotus Village. Everyone present understood the underlying meaning of my words. After all, the emperor's heart is unpredictable. No one dared to bet that Li Yuanzhao wouldn't suddenly change his mind one day and want to erase his humiliating memories of Lotus Village. A man as cold-hearted as him wasn't incapable of such a thing. I wanted to use this as an excuse to disperse the villagers. Sure enough, suspicions spread, and people began to discuss the matter in whispers. What should we do? We've lived here for generations. If we have to move, we're almost dead. Why bother with this? Seeing the time was right, I spoke slowly. Zhao Lang was someone I rescued, so I will take full responsibility for him. Therefore, those villagers who move within 2 days, I, Zhui Yun, will cover all the costs of moving out of Lotus Village and arranging for your future settlement. These words caused an uproar. That's wonderful. Chao Yun, are you serious? Such a good thing? I nodded, seeing more and more villagers eagerly signing up. I secretly sighed in relief. I was orphaned at a young age and grew up on the kindness of the villagers of Lotus Village. Since I had been given a second chance at life, it was only natural for me to do whatever I could to help others. With that, the weight on my heart finally lifted. The villagers' problems were solved, but there was still one more issue to address. I turned to look at Wang Jinhua beside me. She was crouched on the ground, sobbing. I won't leave. I want a handsome man to marry me too. Preferably someone even more handsome than the crown prince. My lips twitched. She was an orphan like me, with no relatives to rely on. Thinking of her tragic fate before rebirth, and her current state, even if she had money, she might easily be deceived by a heartless man. I knelt down, wiped away her tears, and asked, I'll take you to a good place. Will you come with me? She lifted her head, her eyes filled with tears. Where? To be picked up by men? Shut up. As the last person to leave, I set the place ablaze, reducing it to ashes. Before boarding the carriage, I looked at the ruined Lotus Village, feeling as though I had finally bid farewell to the painful memories of my previous life. I felt a sense of relief. This time, no one would die in that plague. Everyone will have money and live a good life. Where is that good place you mentioned the other day? Wang Jinhua asked. I curled the corner of my mouth and lifted the curtain to answer, the capital city. That was also my other plan for the money. Once I get my hands on this money to sustain myself, I will leave here and go to the safest place in the world where I can earn more money. The capital city is prosperous and full of opportunities. Most importantly, I don't want to end up like I did in my previous life, never leaving that small village until I died. The carriage gradually grew distant. But what I didn't know was that 3 days later, several black-clad figures arrived at Lotus Flower Village. The one at the front, dressed in blue robes, had a striking face that hinted at noble origins. Upon seeing the deserted village, with only ruins and rubble remaining, he shifted slightly but said nothing. The other black-clad figures followed along the stream, seemingly searching for something, but ultimately returned empty-handed. Only the young man in blue, as he turned to mount his horse, suddenly fell heavily to the ground. Upon closer inspection, he had forcefully coughed up a mouthful of blood. Just as the new emperor ascended the throne, an embroidery workshop named Yinshang suddenly emerged in the capital city of Xinjiang. When the workshop first opened, it posted notices everywhere, recruiting homeless and destitute women to work there. Not only did it provide food and lodging, but it also taught embroidery skills, allowing women to join the workshop once they became proficient. When the notice was posted, the people of the capital city buzzed with speculation, assuming it was just a gimmick. However, within just half a year, Yinshang Workshop gained fame throughout the imperial capital for its gold leaf embroidery. The embroidery designs were diverse and innovative, attracting the admiration of noble women throughout the capital. It was rumored that the owner of the embroidery workshop was a woman surnamed Wang, who always covered her face with a sheer veil, shrouding herself in mystery. "Miss Zhu, you are clearly the owner of the embroidery workshop. Why do you only allow Miss Wang to appear in public?" Yin Xianyun, the daughter of the left chancellor, was selecting embroidery pieces in the shop and chatting with me. I smiled without responding. Upon arriving in the capital, I opened the Yinshang workshop and purchased a large mansion. Jinhua, who was skilled in herbal medicine, set up a clinic next to the workshop. We also hired a tutor. Thanks to our own hard work, our small businesses have finally begun to thrive. However, this is still Li Yuanzhao's territory. Just in case, I had Jinhua take over as the public face of the cloud clothing workshop. She suddenly remembered something. By the way, the other day when I accompanied my father to the palace for a banquet, I presented the pair of flower and bird hanging screens you embroidered to the emperor. My fingers stopped moving on the abacus. He looked at the character cloud you had embroidered, knocked over his wine cup, and started coughing violently. He also asked me many strange questions. He asked me who had embroidered the hanging screens. Back when I was with Li Yuanzhao, every time he tore his clothes, I would sew them up for him, always adding a little something special. I would embroider a cloud character on the part of his shirt closest to his chest. I called it his talisman. I thought Li Yuanzhao had never noticed such a detail. But then I thought about it, this young lady's name also contains the character for cloud. I couldn't help but feel a glimmer of hope. I pretended to ask casually, "How did you respond?" I said. Her expression suddenly grew serious. I said, "I embroidered it. And then I received the highest reward. It's all thanks to your skillful hands." My father praised me for making progress. "Miss Zhu, you've really helped me out. Would you like to come to my mansion for a banquet in a few days?" She smiled again. Her face lit up. I finally breathed a sigh of relief. Just as I smiled and agreed, she suddenly said mysteriously, "Everyone says the new emperor is decisive and ruthless, with the grace of a phoenix and the bearing of a dragon. Since he ascended the throne, the imperial consort position remains vacant. So all the court officials are competing to send their daughters to the palace. But I wouldn't want that. Because he has a strange illness." I furrowed my brows. Li Yuanzhao is all muscle, hard as a rock to the touch. He's clearly in great shape. Where could he possibly have a strange illness? My father once told me in confidence that the emperor suffers from palpitations. It must be a lingering illness from his days in exile. Shoo! Don't tell anyone. After she left, I stood there dumbfounded, feeling that something was off about Li Yuanzhao's reaction. I tried to reassure myself that those events were long in the past, and Li Yuanzhao wouldn't be so affected by them. He is now the emperor. Any woman he desires is just a word away. He must have long forgotten this rustic peasant woman. But I never anticipated that Li Yuanzhao was a man who held grudges. In the evening, a seamstress rushed over from the front yard with a panicked expression. Chao Yin's sister. Please come quickly. An important guest has arrived. Judging by their attire, they seem to be from the palace. My heart began to race. After much deliberation, I felt that the visitor was not here with good intentions. I calmly instructed. Hold them off over there. Hurry to the clinic and bring Jinhua back. In the reception hall, Li Yuanzhao stood tall and graceful, his dark eyes deep and his thin lips slightly pursed, making it impossible to discern his current emotions. Though he was dressed in ordinary attire, anyone could tell he was no ordinary person. The sense of pressure he exuded was not that of an ordinary palace attendant. Wang Jinhua naturally recognized Li Yuanzhao's identity. She sat in the main seat, forcing herself to remain calm. Sir, you are so handsome and well-dressed. You must be either wealthy or of high rank. May I ask what brings you to our humble establishment? If you're here to place an order, we'll need. Before she could finish, Li Yuanzhao raised his chin slightly. The two attendants behind him lifted the pair of flower and bird hanging screens that Yin Xianyun had given him and placed them on the table. Wang Jinhua had no idea what they were and was completely speechless. What does the young master mean by this? Stop pretending. I know you're from Lotus Village. He spoke indifferently, drawing a delicate dagger from his waist and playing with it slowly. I'm here to find someone. When she looked up again, Li Yuanzhao's eyes were filled with a cold glint. He pressed the dagger against Wang Jinhua's throat. Wang Jinhua swallowed hard and asked tremblingly. Your Majesty. Who are you looking for? My wife. Zhu Chaoyun. Li Yuanzhao's face was filled with restraint, and his eyes were almost red. He exuded a sense of madness. I crouched behind the screen, and before I knew it, my clothes were soaked with sweat. This is not good. Li Yuanzhao had come here today, and it must be related to that pair of flower and bird vases. He didn't seem quite right either. If this continued, Jinhua and I might die here today. Although I didn't know why he was looking for me, I had to face him. I took a deep breath. I stood up and walked boldly around the screen. Then, I knelt down smoothly. My brows and eyes were submissive. My hands pressed against the ground, and I bowed my head toward Li Yuanzhao with a loud thud. This humble maiden, Zhu Chaoyun, pays her respects to your Majesty. The others had already quietly withdrawn. I knelt on the ground, dared not utter a single word. Li Yuanzhao sneered. Zhu Chaoyun, don't think I can't see through your thoughts. You're thinking that by kneeling like this, the days we spent together in Lotus Village no longer count. I've been searching for you for so long, yet I didn't know you were in the capital. His voice was hoarse. I've come here today to clarify things with you. It sounded like the biggest joke I'd ever heard, and I wondered if Li Yuanzhao had lost his mind. Does he think I'm stupid? If I tell him the truth, he'll fly into a rage and have my head cut off. I bowed respectfully and refused politely. A lowly woman dares not. Li Yuanzhao furrowed his brows. Do you think I would kill you? At that moment, my complete lack of trust in him was finally exposed. He walked quickly to the table, wrote something with a brush, and handed the paper to me. This personal edict will ensure your safety and that of the Yunxiang workshop for life. Now you must believe me, right? I finally felt at ease and put it away. Then dared to answer. Your Majesty, I have always treated you well, hoping to earn your genuine affection. But you despise me and loathe me. If you were in my place, would you trust someone so heartless and ungrateful? He seemed utterly stunned. When did I ever say I despised you? Zhu Chaoyun is a barbaric and fierce woman who cannot even read. Our relationship was nothing more than a fleeting affair. Bestowing her with 1,000 taels of gold was already a tremendous favor. I stared into Li Yuanzhao's eyes and repeated his words from years ago. Actually, even if you hadn't said it, I never once considered entering the palace. Even if I became empress. What then? How long could an emperor's love last? I don't care. Oh, I almost forgot to tell you. That day, I dropped the hairpin not because I was sad, but because it was made of silver. And I prefer gold. Li Yuanzhao furrowed his brows, leaned against the table, and covered his chest. So in your heart, I wasn't even as important as 1,000 pieces of gold. Zhu Chaoyun, did you ever have feelings for me? I answered him honestly. That winter, when I was on my way to find you, I fell off a cliff. You risked your life to search for me, digging until your fingers were covered in blood. I did have feelings for you, but I dared not believe in those feelings. Li Yuanzhao didn't know that I started reading and practicing calligraphy not because I cared about his judgment. It was because I believed that people must always look forward. Since I had decided to invest my efforts into Yunxiang workshop, I couldn't remain the same Zhu Chaoyun who only knew how to manipulate an abacus. Only by giving my all could I have the confidence to support Yunxiang workshop. I stared at Li Yuanzhao's dejected expression and spoke slowly. After reading books, I have come to understand that the 4 words wind, flowers, snow, and moon do not merely exist in matters of love and romance, but can also exist in one's aspirations and ambitions. Li Yuanzhao, you have read more books than I have. How could you not understand the meaning of letting go? Those 2 words, letting go, had a profound effect on Li Yuanzhao. His eyelashes trembled, and he suddenly covered his lips with his fist, then turned away and coughed violently. At the same time, his other hand clung tightly to the edge of the table, struggling to steady himself. He was about to say something. Suddenly, a mouthful of blood spurted from his lips, splattering his chest in a shocking display. Li Yuanzhao fell backward onto the ground, closing his eyes tightly, seemingly unconscious. It was only after witnessing this scene that day that I realized the true nature of Li Yuanzhao's strange illness. The scene was indeed quite shocking. However, since the matter had been made clear, based on my understanding of him, he would likely not pursue the matter further. I quickly put Li Yuanzhao out of my mind and focused all my attention on the Left Chancellor's birthday banquet. There was no other reason. The Yunxiang workshop had already gained some fame among the noble ladies of the imperial clan, but that was far from enough. If I could make good use of this opportunity, the Yunxiang workshop could enter the entire imperial clan's field of vision. On the day of the banquet, I attended as a close friend of Yin Xianyun and arrived early. But as soon as I stepped through the door, I saw Li Yuanzhao sitting in the center. He noticed me immediately. I thought, how could this be such a coincidence? As our eyes met, I calmly looked away and sat down at my own seat. After a few rounds of wine, the atmosphere was lively. When it came time to present gifts for the birthday celebration, I took out the carefully prepared gift I had brought. In an instant, everyone in the hall turned their attention to me, having heard that Lord Yin was known for his integrity and dislike of extravagance. This humble maiden brought some charming trinkets from Yunshengfang. I slowly unfolded the item in my hands. This is a 4-sided embroidery from the Yunxiang workshop. The left minister was puzzled. I have only heard of double-sided embroidery. What is this 4-sided embroidery? I smiled, walked to the center, and first showed the front of the perfume pouch. then turned it over. These are the two sides. Then I held up the perfume pouch and aimed it at the sunlight. The original auspicious patterns vanished under the sunlight, replaced by an 8-treasure longevity design. The embroidery on the inner layer was even more delicate and exquisite. I bowed and declared in a clear voice, "May the noble official enjoy both physical and mental well-being, and longevity and prosperity." Indeed. It is marvelous. Excellent. Very good. Yin Xiang was delighted beyond words. I couldn't help but feel a surge of joy in my heart. Today's matter was settled. Unexpectedly, Li Yuanzhao, seated at the head of the table, suddenly spoke, his intense gaze lingering on my face. "I also find this incense pouch exquisitely crafted, surpassing even the finest artisans in the palace. It should be admired." As he finished speaking, someone in the hall began to clap, and the surrounding area erupted in applause. The banquet concluded, and I was about to leave. A man dressed in luxurious attire blocked my path. He approached me with surprising familiarity and began introducing himself. "Miss, you should recognize me. I am the eldest son of Chindarin." I did not know who he was, but out of politeness, I smiled and shook my head. "You are so skilled with your hands and so beautiful. It's a shame to waste your talents on needlework. Why not come with me? I'll take care of your business from now on." He reached out to embrace me. I tried to dodge him but failed, and he grabbed me tightly. Suddenly, a piercing scream echoed through the hall. The man had been kicked from behind, sending him flying backward. "Who the hell?" "The Emperor!" His expression shifted from anger to terror. Li Yuanzhao's boot landed on the man's hand that had just touched me. He swiftly drew a sword from a guard's sheath. With another flick of his wrist, the man's hairpin was knocked off by Li Yuanzhao, and his hair was disheveled, most of it having been sliced off. The man lowered his eyes and coldly said, "I never knew that a mere servant dared to take advantage of my position." He showed no emotion, gradually exerting force with his feet, as if he intended to crush that hand. I turned to leave. Li Yuanzhao suddenly grabbed my wrist with great force, pulling me in the opposite direction. He said nothing until he had led me around a rockery, then demanded, "Every time you see me, you have this expression. Yet you even smiled at that worthless man earlier." I didn't feel like arguing with him, but my silence enraged Li Yuanzhao and made him jealous to the point of madness. "What did you two talk about? Did he make advances toward you? Or does he want to marry you? Do you know that Qin Gongzi has 8 concubines and is a womanizer? Why can he have her? But I can't? How dare that filthy hand touch you?" He spoke quickly, his face betraying a hint of obsession. "I'm richer than him. I've only ever had you. And I'm much cleaner than him." Li Yuanzhao suddenly grabbed the sword and shoved it into my hand. His eyes were bloodshot, and he gripped the sword tip, pointing it at his own chest. "Chao Yun, please, don't hate me. If you truly hate me so much, just kill me with this sword." I interrupted him, staring at him in disbelief. "Li Yuanzhao, have you forgotten who you are? Have you gone mad?" He lowered his head and laughed softly. "You're right. Perhaps. From the day I remembered my past life, I had already gone mad." The words "past life" nearly stopped my breath. Li Yuanzhao continued to press. "Chao Yun, answer me honestly. You've always been so certain that I'm heartless and ungrateful, refusing to believe me. Is it because of the Wang family?" I was startled. How did he know? Could it be Li Yuanzhao had also been reborn? Li Yuanzhao had once fallen from a horse. When he woke up, he had gained a strange memory. I suddenly understood why. On the day I was injured, I happened to meet you at the village entrance. Why you had already prepared medicine for me, and why you had been so kind to me. I thought you treated me so well because you also liked me. It turns out I was wrong from the start. I began to feel uneasy. Li Yuanzhao not only knew about his past life, but also guessed the true reason why I went to save him. Yet he didn't get angry. In my past life, I had already made it clear that I had another identity and had made an agreement with the Wang family that once I recovered, I would compensate them with money. The marriage was a sham, staying in the Lotus Village to recuperate was the truth. I have no feelings for her and have never touched her. In my previous life, I naturally didn't know about his connection with Jinhua. This is indeed one of the reasons I was certain that Li Yuanzhao was unfaithful. Every time he did something for me, I would subconsciously think that it wasn't his true feelings, but just a facade. This truth left me speechless, almost not knowing how to respond. Li Yuanzhao's voice was hoarse. Those secret guards were not my men. The emperor sent them multiple times to test me. So I pretended to have no interest in you. Speaking harshly was also to dispel the emperor's concerns. I feared that after I left, he would exterminate everyone. I once thought that if I could ascend the throne a day earlier, I could bring you into the palace a day sooner. But you said that day that you didn't care. My love, the hairpin my mother left me, power and status, everything I can give you. You don't want any of it. What about the money? I have nothing left. This is all I have. It seemed like I had seen many different versions of Li Yuanzhao. The dying Li Yuanzhao, the Li Yuanzhao I had been with day and night, and the Li Yuanzhao who had left in a huff. Though they were all different, they were all within my expectations, allowing me to guard against him with ease. But the Li Yuanzhao before me now had shattered all my expectations of him. This man made me feel helpless for the first time. His voice was earnest. Zhu Chaoyun, will you trust me once? I lowered my eyes and did not answer. I seemed to need some time to think it over. 7 days later was the Lantern Festival in Xinjiang. Thanks to the plans made at the Left Chancellor's birthday banquet, business at Yinshang Pavilion was booming. I carried the newly embroidered gold foil wish-granting lantern and stood at the spot where I had agreed to meet Li Yuanzhao. The bridge was crowded with people, each wearing a different mask and holding a unique lantern. Below the bridge, thousands of lotus lanterns floated on the lake, reflecting the moonlight and swaying with the ripples, resembling stars cascading from the heavens. Only one person wore a black mask, walking against the crowd under the moonlight. In his hand, he held a treasure lantern embroidered by Yinshang Workshop. The ingot lantern was plump and round, with a cute, innocent appearance. Yet for some reason, all the other hand-embroidered lanterns had been snapped up, leaving only my favorite ingot lanterns, which had sold only 2 or 3, making them the least popular items in the batch. I was feeling rather down about it. Then, out of nowhere, a kind-hearted person appeared and bought all the remaining ingot lanterns. I knew exactly who that person was. The tall man in the black mask walked lightly, seeming in a good mood. He paused briefly beside me but then pretended to walk forward. I pretended not to recognize him, calmly shifting my gaze to look elsewhere. Sure enough, Li Yuanzhao returned to my side. After pacing back and forth a few times, he noticed I hadn't reacted and couldn't contain himself anymore, urgently lifting his mask. You really didn't recognize me? He furrowed his brows slightly. I felt like laughing, but nodded seriously instead. Li Yuanzhao was taken aback, but quickly regained his composure. No problem. I'll give you another chance next year. If you don't recognize me then, we'll try again the year after that. And the year after that. If we keep doing this year after year, you'll eventually recognize me. He relaxed his brows and eyes, filled with anticipation. Why did you ask me to meet you? I knew exactly what he was expecting. I also removed the rabbit mask from my face. My hands gripped the lamppost tightly. Li Yuanzhao, I've thought it through. Though we had many misunderstandings in the past, you were willing to clarify your feelings. There are some things I don't want to hide from you. I don't dislike you. I've felt something for you, and I'm not afraid to trust you again." The corners of his eyes lit up with joy. I sighed and continued. "But there are things I want to do more than that. If being with you means giving up the Cloud Robe workshop and my freedom, I don't think I can do it. The 9-foot palace walls, the imperial family, they would all be chains binding me. Such a life might be wealthier, but I wouldn't be happier than I am now. I still prefer being my little money lover, tinkering with my favorite gold foil threads. Once I earn more money, I'll do things I truly enjoy. Or, when I have the chance, I'll go out and see the beauty of the world. I know deep down that this is the life I want." Li Yuan Zhao. "I'm sorry." After saying those words, I felt a weight lifted off my shoulders. I bowed and turned to leave. But unexpectedly, the person behind me grabbed me and pulled me back into his arms. His other hand lifted my mask and looked at me intently. To form a harmonious union, to become a perfect match. We had already sworn our vows before heaven and earth at the mountain god's temple in Lotus Village. Li Yuan Zhao's fingers brushed across my lips. Then, a warm kiss fell upon me. "If you don't want to enter the palace, then so be it. I will find a way. But, Zhu Chaoyun, don't think this will scare me away." The new year was approaching, and Yunshang Pavilion had opened its 3rd branch in the capital. I couldn't handle everything alone, so I entrusted it to 2 other exceptionally talented seamstresses. That day, a heavy snow fell on Xinjing. Since we had spoken openly last time, Li Yuan Zhao seemed even more unrestrained. Whenever he had a moment, he would come to me. He said that since I didn't want to enter the palace, he would leave the palace to find me instead. That's the plan he came up with. What really gets to me is that every time he comes to see me, he brings all sorts of valuable treasures to make me happy. This isn't an ex-husband. This is a god of wealth walking right up to me. As soon as I see him, I look around frantically and, when no one's paying attention, pull him into the house. "Did you come in through the back door? Don't go through the front door. If someone recognizes you as the emperor, they'll all run away. If you mess up my business, I won't even open the back door for you, not even the dog hole." He brushed the snow off his shoulder, leaned against the bed, and smiled. He seemed completely unconcerned by my desperate attempts to make him crawl through the dog hole. Li Yuan Zhao suddenly handed me a delicate golden key. The key was engraved with flowing patterns, and at the top was embedded a small night pearl. Clearly a work of art. "Chao Yun, a New Year's gift." I found it a bit odd. It wasn't even New Year yet. Why was he already preparing a gift for me? When I looked down again, he had already slipped the key into my hand. Li Yuan Zhao paused for a moment. "I also want to ask you for a gift." I thought that after all this time, he must have finally given in and was about to say something to get me into the palace again. But to my surprise, Li Yuan Zhao just wanted me to embroider the character cloud on his clothes like I used to. "You used to tease me, saying that the characters you embroidered were my talisman. So every time I wore it out, it was thanks to you that I returned home safely." He added, "You haven't embroidered the characters on next year's new clothes yet." That was then. But now Li Yuan Zhao is the emperor. No matter where he goes, he has guards following him. I just thought he was being childish. Nevertheless, for the sake of the golden key, I still brought the needle and thread. Li Yuan Zhao took advantage of the situation and went even further. "Tomorrow, I'll bring a few more. Why don't you embroider them on my dragon robe?" I reached out to pinch him and scolded him. Incompetent emperor. The movement was as natural as flowing water, as if I had suddenly returned to the peaceful days in Lotus Village. I suddenly realized this. I tried to withdraw my hand, but Li Yuanzhao grabbed it again. His slender fingers slipped through mine, gripping them tighter, leaving me no room to retreat. The bright sunlight streamed in, filling the room with warmth. Li Yuanzhao sat in the ethereal light, turning his head to look at me, his expression unchanged. Suddenly, I felt that if I didn't do something, I wouldn't be worthy of being called an incompetent emperor. He took advantage of the situation and wrapped his arms around my waist, pressing me down on the bed. At the end of that day, I kicked Li Yuanzhao off the bed. After he left, I realized that he had left the embroidered shirt behind. How careless of him. Given his nature, he would probably come back the next day with a thick face to take it back. Right? But in the days that followed, Li Yuanzhao remained quiet and did not appear again. Something unusual was afoot. I had an uneasy premonition. After waiting for several more days, Li Yuanzhao still made no move. I sent someone to the palace to inquire, but there was no word. Just then, rumors began to spread throughout the capital. A strange epidemic is rampant in Mainan County, with countless deaths. I suddenly remembered that most of the villagers who had left Lotus Village had gone to Mainan County. In my previous life, that epidemic struck with devastating force. Without any medicine or food supplies, the people of Lotus Village clung to life until their last breath. Only those who have died once can truly understand that despair. Although Mainan County is far more prosperous than Lotus Flower Village, it is still plagued by the epidemic, and how long they can hold on is uncertain. It is likely that the affected area is larger, and the suffering of the people is even greater. And precisely because I have personally endured that hellish ordeal, I cannot stand idly by. I immediately spent most of my savings, procured vehicles and horses overnight, loaded several carts with disaster relief supplies, and set off for Mainan County. Gold and silver are indeed important, but even if one were to spend all one's wealth, it would still be insignificant compared to human life. When I arrived, I found that everything in Mainan County was already under control. Several makeshift huts had been erected to isolate the sick, and there were designated spots for distributing porridge and medicine. Besides the doctors working in shifts, they were disinfecting the area by burning sangshu, leaving no detail overlooked. The medicines and food I brought also proved helpful. I sighed in relief, marveling at how capable the county magistrate of Mainan County was. Then I heard a young boy say, "It's not the county magistrate. Last time, my sister told me in secret that it was Li Darin from the capital." For some reason, I suddenly remembered the gift Li Yuanzhao had urgently sent, and the cloud-patterned embroidery he had asked me for. My throat went dry, and I whispered, "Where is that Li Darin? He seems very ill." My sister said he's about to die. I rushed all the way to Li Yuanzhao's courtyard. The secret guards at the door recognized me and dared not stop me. I pushed open the door. Li Yuanzhao was indeed lying on the bed. His eyes were tightly closed, with faint dark circles under them, as if he had been awake for a long time, and his face looked exhausted. I realized that I was not used to seeing him looking so lifeless. "Li Yuanzhao, I came to find you." I stood by his bedside and saw the medicine bowl beside him. "Who told you to leave your amulet behind? You deserve it." A lingering sense of frustration welled up in my heart. I felt like I didn't want to say these things, but it seemed like the only way to ease the worry weighing on his heart. Blinking back tears, I continued to mutter, "But don't worry. I've thought it all through on the way here. If you really die, I'll forget you completely and live my life properly. Then I'll take the gold you gave me and marry the richest man in the capital. And every year we'll go together to burn paper offerings for you." Li Yuanzhao's eyelids suddenly began to twitch. I jumped in surprise, and my tears stopped. Could this be the legendary death throes? He suddenly opened his deep eyes, grabbed my wrist, and said through gritted teeth, Zhu Chaoyun. Dare you? You cried. After a moment of stunned silence, his eyes filled with joy, and he said with even greater certainty, You cried for me, which means you care about me. Clearly, the person before him was exhausted from overwork, his cheeks sunken from fatigue, but he was so happy that he refused to let go of my hand. Li Yuanzhao explained. The plague in our previous life was fierce, and because Lotus Village was remote, I heard the news and rushed there. But it was already too late. You had deep feelings for them, and the people of Lotus Village had also taken care of me. This time, it involved Mainan County, both publicly and privately. I must come personally. He had considered everything for Lotus Village and had never once entertained the thought of exterminating them. These words softened my heart. He extended his hand and opened his palm. To my surprise, the plain hairpin lay there quietly. This time, I finally understood that it had been lost because someone had picked it up. He knew it belonged to you, so he gave it to me. Though it is ugly and not made of gold, it is the only memento my mother left me. If you do not like it, after all these years, it has come full circle and been returned to me. Before she could finish, I took it from his hand. This time, I pinned it in my hair. Lately, I've been wearing a lot of gold jewelry. Changing it up occasionally seems nice too. The turmoil in Mainan County finally subsided. After returning with Li Yuanzhao, I welcomed my first New Year in the capital. I also received my true New Year's gift. On New Year's Eve, Li Yuanzhao brought me into the palace. Holding the key, I opened the doors to a golden hall bathed in radiant light. I stared in awe, unable to stop smiling. This was prepared for you this morning. Its purpose is not to confine you, but to let you know that wherever I am, there will always be a place for you. I wonder how long he spent coming up with those words to deceive me. I mocked myself inwardly, yet I felt deeply moved. I saw a gentle smile spread across Li Yuanzhao's lips. He leaned closer and continued. That day, when I first heard you say you cared about me, my heart was filled with joy. For me, that was enough. I would never ask for more. Chao Yun, I have a question for you. Will you spend the rest of your life with me? The golden hall was brightly lit, and the candles flickered. The man before me looked at me earnestly, his eyes seeming to shine even brighter. I felt his gaze and my heart fluttered slightly. I smiled and replied, You know I never make a bad deal. So, it's a deal. Later, Yanshangfang became the most prestigious embroidery workshop in the capital. It is said that the Wang girl not only funded the construction of several schools but also became the first woman to join the Xinjiang Merchants Association. Zhu Chaoyun lived exactly as she had hoped. Whenever she had free time, she traveled far and wide, seeing the world's beauty. In the letters she sent back, she sometimes included a branch of willow from the south or drew a crescent moon over the desert. Li Yuanzhao. The peach blossoms are in bloom here again. I've learned how to brew wine, and everyone says it's delicious. Everyone? Who are they? The man in the bright yellow dragon robe sat at the table, suddenly furrowing his brows. This woman from the northern desert is truly full of spirit. When I return, I must paint a design of her in riding attire. If you're willing to teach me how to ride a horse, I might consider giving you a set. Upon reading this, he relaxed his furrowed brows. The young woman named Bao in the embroidery workshop is about to give birth. Remember to deliver the items I prepared for her. It's thoughtful of her to take such small matters to heart. Nevertheless, he carefully noted down the instructions and followed them diligently. Meet Jinhua at the pier tomorrow. Don't worry. Do you have enough money for the journey? He felt he was worrying too much. If anything happened, the secret guards would report back to him. Li Yuanzhao raised his head and looked at the empty palace. Lost in thought, He suddenly remembered the girl named Chu who lived next door to him in his previous life. Every time she set up her stall, it was right next to his meat shop. Whenever someone haggled over the price, if they were even a penny short, she would scowl angrily, cross her arms, and almost scold them to death. She was so stingy. Yet every winter, she would sew clothes for the stray cats and dogs on the street. If she encountered a pitiful beggar, she would scrape together a few copper coins and give them half a bowl of noodles. When Li Yuanzhao was bored, he couldn't help but observe her, feeling curious about her. After ascending the throne, upon hearing that Lotus Village was struck by a plague, her face was the first thing that came to his mind. That Zhu girl. I wonder if she survived. But their connection ended there. Later, Li Yuanzhao became a diligent and compassionate emperor. But he died of an illness during a very cold winter. When he opened his eyes again, before he could remember his past life, he first encountered Zhu Chaoyun. They met in winter. She came in the midst of wind and snow. And from that moment on, he was trapped in a lifelong obsession. Li Yuanzhao recalled the words his mother had spoken on her deathbed. Zhao, the greatest regret of my life was traveling back to this dynasty and meeting your father. Remember my words, do not be like him. He vowed to himself that he would. Li Yuanzhao pulled himself out of his memories, closed the last letter, and carefully placed it back into the box. Whether long or short, the few words Zhu Chaoyun wrote in each letter brought him comfort, even when they were separated by distance. Despite the various reasons, such as the journey and the weather, the letters often failed to arrive on time. But whenever he thought of her, Li Yuanzhao would sit alone in the vast golden terrace palace, flipping through these letters repeatedly, counting the days until her return. He even moved the desk where he reviewed official documents here. It was quite amusing. The Golden Terrace Palace had never been visited by Zhu Chaoyun, yet it was he who often lingered here. Report to the Emperor. The young eunuch on night duty at the door couldn't hide his excitement and suddenly announced loudly. For some reason, Li Yuanzhao's heart began to race. What is it? The lady from Yunshang Pavilion has returned. He bit his lip, his joy spreading from his heart. Unable to be contained, Li Yuanzhao put down the letter in his hand, stood up, and said loudly, "Prepare the horses. I must leave the palace." The night was as cool as water, and the sound of horse hooves echoed swiftly, splashing spring flowers everywhere. It turned out that the golden palace built for her had only ever locked him inside from the very beginning.